I'd rather be with you. Yeah.
Hello, Olivier. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here for Good Vibe Radio, another one. Every day at noon 19, I'm welcoming an amazing entrepreneur, someone that I love, someone that I really admire for what he's been or she's been building. And it's a simple conversation to go through this super hardcore times and just to bring some optimism, some good vibes to all the entrepreneurs from our tech ecosystem who are in need for these good vibes. So today it's going to be with you, Olivier, and I'm super, super excited, super happy to have this conversation with you. So maybe you could start just by telling me how you feel.
Well, we feel good. We feel good. Yeah. This is a very interesting human experience to go through confinement, and I think it's probably a reality check for humanity and a test for all of us. So, but up to now, it looks good and it feels good.
Cool. And so you are in the countryside of France, in Luberon.
Absolutely, yes. Escaped. Well, you know, when you're an insurer, you're into statistics and you're into mathematics and numbers. And when everybody started talking about social distancing, of course, I mean, the idea was to find a place where the people density is as low as possible. So this is the statistics behind the man. So This is why we escaped. Even if I know that now a lot of people are angry against Parisians that escaped the city, but
spread the disease.
Yeah, we spread the virus across the country, but we try not to do so. So we're very prudent and we stay in the house.
Cool. So can you give me the one line, like the very 1 minute pitch of La Parisienne?
Well, La Parisienne, I mean, a very old name, but very funky and digital model. Basically, what we do, we embed insurance products in other products or services. When you drive a Dot e-scooter, you're insured by us. When you get into a Uber in 4 countries, you're insured by us. When you get your food delivered by Deliveroo, you're insured by us. So basically, what we're doing is that we're building white label insurance products, and we embed them into other products and services. And we do all of this through APIs, and we automate as much as we can in the blockchain. So that's the elevator pitch.
Wow. So what is super interesting is that with this technological approach of insurance, you are able to adapt to the new cases, the new use cases. We're talking about insurance for Uber. For instance, the Uber driver, when they start taking someone, they need an insurance that will really take into account the rides and the amount of time that they've been riding, so that they can pay the price that actually they need.
Yes. Yeah, it's really on demand. I mean, so we're plugged into the apps, and so when they start a shift on the app, we get the information through our APIs and our blockchain, and we insure them for like 8 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever, how long is the shift. And of course, so it makes very small premiums. I think the average premium on those guys is like 1.8 euros. And so we need to automate all of this. So obviously, for the moment, there's not a lot of private hire drivers driving across the roads. But that's the beauty of it for them as well, because they're not being billed because they're not using their cars. So it's really adapted to the model and the crisis.
Many startups can use La Parisienne, your infrastructure to like I think of if I'm not wrong, of Luco. Luco is based on La Parisienne.
Yes, absolutely. We co-design and built their homeowners products with them, and well, I think we helped them grow. And actually, even during this crisis, I mean, we're very active with our partners and people like Luco, and we're adapting the products to what's happening today. For example, for them, we just agreed to accept that apartments would be empty and still be insured for an extensive period of time, which is usually taken away from the contracts, because a lot of people have left their apartments to go on the countryside, like you said. So So we're trying to be proactive with all those guys, all the startups that we're supporting. We also gave during the crisis much more time for people to pay premiums because, of course, revenues are going to be tight for the people of the gig economy. So we're trying to be as active as possible.
Cool. And so, can you give us like a little snapshot, just in terms of figures of La Parisienne? We can grab a sense of how big you are.
Yes. So, well, I don't know which terminology we should use, like scale up or whatever is the right terminology. But in 2019, we had a turnover of approximately 400 million euros. We grew from 50 million to 400 in 5 years, so pretty quick, with a compound annual growth rate of more than 30%. And we're profitable, which is unusual for scale-ups. We've doubled our profit this year in 2019, and 55% of our turnover now is international. So the name is very, very French, but the business is very international.
How many people? How many employees?
It's approximately 180 people, and if you're looking at our platforms now, we have approximately 4 million calls on the APIs on a monthly basis, and the percentage of the contracts that we automate on the blockchain is raising to is now 12%, 15%. We have approximately 1 million policies live, and we already have 120,000 policy totally automated in the blockchain.
Explain me why do you use blockchain?
Well, like I said, when we do on-demand insurance, the premiums are very small. So if you don't automate everything behind, the friction cost is too high. So we really need to have a full automation. And also we need, it's still insurance. We still cover people. So we need a formal proof that people are insured. So of course, I mean, the full traceability that exists in the blockchain is very useful for people like us.
Cool. Thank you. This was really clear, very impressive as well. Well done. Can we go back to your life to discover a little bit where you come from? Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial environment? Were your parents entrepreneurs themselves?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, you know what? I mean, I'm in the south of France now during this crisis, but this is also probably because I come from the south of France. So, when you feel at risk, sometimes you need to go back to your comfort zone. Exactly. So this is my comfort zone, clearly, in the south of France. So I grew up in a house, and yes, my parents were entrepreneurs, and they were insurance brokers. So because I mean, when you get out of business school, it's not super sexy to work in the insurance industry. Clearly, at my age, when you go out of school, it was sexier to work for Arthur Andersen or Goldman Sachs. So to go and work in an insurance broker, I mean, no other choice that it's a family business. So stayed in the family for 5 years, but then thought it was just too complex to mix up, business and emotions and family. And in 1997, 1998, went to Paris and started my own insurance business on the web, very early stage. So
what was the name of it?
Well, I started brokerage firm. I was the first one to launch direct operations B2C website on the web, selling insurance, selling motor insurance and home insurance. The name at the time was assurediscount.com. So it was very, very early stage in '98.
And then what did you do with this company?
Then we started as distributors, and then we moved into the value chain and bought an insurance company, La Parisienne. It was back in 2001. Then built up platforms, which you call BPO, business process outsourcing, which is basically platforms administrating policies and claims, which we're doing now. I mean, mostly in the blockchain as automation. And we stayed like this for approximately 10 years because, now, I mean, some entrepreneurs think that it's very quick to make it and succeed, but you need to change model a few times, and it takes a few years.
When you say we, you already had some co-founders?
When I say we, it's because I always talk about the team that I have around me. It's pretty complex for me to use I. I have people that have been with me for the last 20 years. I mean, my first employee is still with us. today. So, and we changed the model to the model I just described, which is a fully digitalized model with APIs and blockchain. We changed it like 5 years ago, approximately. We got rid of the distribution. We got rid of the BPO. I started a full tech project that was a SaaS software company building back office for insurance companies as well. Headquartered the company in New York, moved in the US, stayed for a few years, eventually sold that company in the US, and then came back to La Parisienne in Paris 4 to 5 years ago.
So you bought La Parisienne, but then you started a new company. You moved to New York to dedicate your life to this company. Then you
put a professional CEO at La Parisienne for a few years, and then when I came back from the US, after a major failure and a major burnout, so you decided to replace the professional CEO.
Can I understand? So if I understand it well, this venture that you started in New York was already in your intention was already to do what you are doing today with La Parisienne.
Well, no, it was. I mean, it was. The idea was building. You know, I mean, very often when you say in French that the planets are aligned, you know, and you find the right business model. And when you find the right business model, it has taken time and it has taken successes and failures. So I think the business model that we're developing now for the last 5 years with the exponential growth is actually the results of everything that I've tried over my entrepreneurial experience. The success that we had back in 1998, you know, doing distribution on the web, the success in buying La Parisienne, the failure of creating that tech company in the US, but that was still in the insurance industry. What
did you learn from this experience in the US?
Okay. Do I have to be politically correct?
No, please don't.
So I learned two things. That Americans are full of bullshit, so they're very good at producing slides, but there's not a lot behind slides. So when you work in the US, you have to be extremely careful about what people are delivering behind the slides, because they're people that they have a marketing DNA, and that's what they learn in American universities. So they're very good at delivering a message. But then,
and storytelling is something important.
And storytelling is very American, and but delivering, executing behind is not one of their. They don't have any agility about this. I mean, you give them a strategy, they will deliver the strategy, but up to banging into the wall. And so you have to be extremely, and they're not very transparent. So the other thing that you learn, and that might sound pretty obvious now, but when you're a younger entrepreneur, you think that if you have the magic idea and the magic architecture, and you will succeed, and you put too much emphasis on strategy and not enough on execution. And I think what I learned in the US, I think our idea was magic. The tech architecture that we had behind, we were already talking about layers, core systems, APIs, microservices 6 years ago, so it was pretty innovative, but execution, honestly, it was a major failure. I didn't have the right people, I didn't have the right partners. And I think today, and the people that work with me in the company, they know that, I mean, probably 90% of my time is focused on execution and operational excellence, and maybe 10% of my time is about strategy. And I think it was the reverse prior to that. And that's what I learned, mostly, I would say.
On a more personal view, what did you learn from this? Because I mean, it must have been hard to move there, to dedicate all of your life to this new company, and then to come back.
Well, you have to, you know, I mean, I think you have to upgrade your internal software. It's like a computer. So you have to go to the new version, the 2.0 or 3.0. I mean, basically what I did, well, I got very sick out of my burnout, and anyway, it took me 3 years to work again. And so I did a lot of, it was an inner journey, clearly, going through a lot of things, personally and professionally. professionally, what I did, I went to INSEAD and followed a program called Challenge of Leadership that is run by, I would call a leadership guru called Manfred Ketsteries. He's written, I mean, people can go on the web and Google his name. He's written like, I think, 42 books about leadership in the world. And he has a very peculiar methodology, which is basically for a year, you have 5 weeks of immersion with a group of CEO that you don't know, and you basically do a group therapy for a year with your peers. You talk about your life, and basically your life becomes a business case, and everybody resonates and reacts about this life and helps you build the next step. And trust me, it's a storm. It's an internal storm. But after that, I mean, you basically work with a new software inside, and that was very interesting.
So you came back to La Parisienne and you become again the CEO, the operational CEO. With this pivot, you wanted already to go from being an insurance company to becoming the white label for all the insurance company through a technological layer.
Yes, and CEO, stands for a different thing in our company. I mean, CEO stands for Chief Enablement Officer and not Chief Executive Officer. So what I'm trying to achieve with my team is enable them to do their job. And it's not that easy because, of course, when you're an entrepreneur, you have a tendency to think that you're always right. So it's a constant internal fight to try to hire people that are better than you are and try to enable them to do their job. And this is what we're trying to do. There is no real org chart or hierarchy in our company. We have a methodology called Bespoke, and actually the organization is aligned on the methodology with a max of 3 layers of hierarchy. And what I'm trying to do is talk to every.
You are 180 people.
Yeah.
3 level of hierarchy.
Yes, max. Yes, and honestly, my daily job is enabling people to do their job, and this is the way I see things. And probably without the burnout, without the failure, without the INSEAD program, I wouldn't have seen things in the same way.
Can you describe a little bit how does it work, this 3-level hierarchy and the culture of La Parisienne?
Well, for example, I mean, I can give a couple of examples. I mean, so we have a very democratic governance about certain things. For example, every Monday morning, and even through the crisis, I mean, virtually we do it every Monday morning. The whole company votes for the business that are proposed to La Parisienne. So the business developer, they present to the whole company the business opportunity, and the whole company votes if we want to work on that opportunity and if we want to try to build up that partnership. And we absolutely respect democracy. We virtually vote with an application, and we follow up on this. And after that, steering committee have disappeared. We have a forum with my direct report. There is no agenda to that forum on the Monday morning. We use also this digital application where everybody can plug in the subjects they want to talk about. And so is it a subject where they want to give information to people? Is there a subject that they need an arbitrage? Is there a subject that they want to discuss priorities with the rest of the group? And I don't control that agenda. Everybody can access the platform and puts in their own topic. And so these are 2 examples of the way we work with a very low level of hierarchy in the structure.
I remember coming to your office space and visiting. It's really beautiful, a beautiful office space in Paris, and joining one of your meetings around branding. How do you manage this crisis right now operationally? This is my first question, and my second question is how the business is impacted for you.
Well, so how do we handle it? And maybe after I'd like to talk about the crisis, if you allow me to do so. But the way we handle, well, I mean, our DNA is fully digital and full remote work. So, I mean, honestly, there is no business interruption for us. This is already the way we worked. we reacted extremely quickly because we're a week before the first announcement from Emmanuel Macron, we had already divided the teams in two, and half of the teams were remaining in-house, and we were just rotating. And the minute that we had the announcement from our president on the Thursday night, we just closed the offices. So everybody is working remotely, and no partial unemployment, no nothing, because the company is running at full speed. We kept our rituals. So the ritual that I'm talking about in the Monday morning, everybody voting and everything. On the morning, I run a session. I think the last session was more than 125 people attending and voting to new business opportunities. We've put live already 2 new partnerships with 2 new insurance products since the beginning of the crisis and since the beginning of the confinement.
Cool.
So honestly, a business is totally up and running. Of course, maintaining the culture requires to maintain rituals, and this is not easy because, of course, people don't have the same lifestyle, and for some of them it's extremely complicated and tough because they have to raise the children, work, remain confined with their spouse or everything, which are not used to. So psychologically, it is difficult. But the company is totally up and running. And of course, our products are delivered through APIs. So APIs are public, they're on the web. So no business interruption on that side.
Cool. And on the business itself, I mean, do you see changes regarding the need for insurances right now?
Well, yes. I mean, basically, we've committed the first 2 weeks to really make sure that the whole aspects of the company were up and running. And now we're really, I mean, reconfiguring the company for the next step, rethinking the company, because, like you says, I mean, the vertical business are not going to have the same need for insurance before, during, and after the crisis. We were talking. For example, I'll give you 2 examples of business that we're doing with. I mean, private hire that you mentioned with Uber is the activity is at 0. But food and parcel delivery that we're doing with Deliveroo and people like this, I mean, the activity is going, up exponentially. So I mean, of course. So looking at all the aspects and all the verticals is the job that we have to do now to see which one are active or not.
There is a question from Hugo. Is La Parisienne vision similar to Element.in vision in Germany? And if so, why do you believe it was better to acquire La Parisienne to pivot and build a scale-up rather than building your company from scratch? What a good question, Hugo. Thank you.
Yeah, I will put it the other way. It's Element's vision that is similar to La Parisienne's vision. I mean, Element was created much after we did our pivot and of our business model. I mean, Element basically copied our business model, and I already had the shell of La Parisienne, and this is why we use that shell. Of course, we use the licenses to develop that new business model. But we started 5-6 years ago. They started 2 years ago, and they basically copied what we're doing. I know them well. There are a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences into the business model. They want to do the claims administration themselves. They still put human behind the things. They believe less than we believe in automation. And they concentrate only on alternative distribution, and we believe that not everything will go through alternative distributors, but the insurance brokers and what we call the MGA, the managing general agent, will still be alive for a long period of time. So we do both. So that's why we think it was much better to build it from scratch. And if you talk about, I mean, an insurance company is a regulated entity. And when you start from scratch as well, it's very difficult to obtain licenses in different countries and licenses about different lines of business. And just to remind, we're already licensed in 15 countries and in most of the line of business. That will take them time. But this is something you can acquire with the shell. I hope I answered.
Yeah, it was, sorry, and I used this time to plug my computer because I had no more battery. Hey, Olivier, where do you see the biggest opportunities in the insurance space given the current circumstances?
Well, like I said, I mean, we need to clearly analyze vertical by vertical what's going to be the consequences of this crisis. Of course, you have some obvious things that are going to be complex. I mean, people that are in travel insurance today, they're very impacted by the crisis. Again, if you're on the food and parcel delivery sub-vertical like we are, you're impacted, but in a positive way. So after you're impacted also in a positive way in the fact that our technical margin, our profit should be higher sometimes because there will be less claims, less accident on the road, of course. So it's not that you have one major opportunity. I mean, it has to be a very precise analysis, vertical by vertical, about what's going to be the impact. Impact on the top line, on the volume of business that can be delivered, but also impact on the bottom line to see if we will have less or more claims than anticipated. And this is a work that has to be done by every insurer. And at the end of this analysis, I mean, we will have a clear vision of what are the biggest opportunities.
And so let's take one step back and look at this big crisis.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the world changing? Even if I'm not asking you how the afterworld will be,
Mm-hmm.
but more
Mm-hmm.
like how do you see it? Because I know you are used to take one step back and to analyze a little bit. How does it resonate with you?
Well, the way it resonates for me, I think there's one question first that is interesting to raise: is why did we react so slowly? And then I don't know if people are familiar with this, but with cognitive psychology. But if you're looking at the cognitive bias that have been happening, they're pretty interesting. I think the first cognitive bias is what you call the mental model. If you look at the Chinese and the Hubei province, I mean, they locked down the province after 400 cases, which was really at the beginning.
Yes.
And we didn't do that. We waited. And the question is like, why did we wait? Because the Chinese, they had a mental model, which they remembered what happened with SRAS years ago. So they could refer mentally to what happened in the past, and they reacted quickly. For us, we didn't have that mental model because the only comparison that we had was H1N1 and all the protest that we had against the government because we bought like millions of vaccines and millions of masks. So we didn't have the same mental model. I think the second bias that is interesting and is the incapacity for the human brain to approach exponential growth. And again, I come back to being a statistician and mathematician. I mean, the human brain sees very well what is a straight line, but it's difficult for human brain to see what is an exponential curve and to approach this. I mean, from the beginning, the government told us that the percentage of growth was 27% per day. Okay, you look at 27, you say it's not that high, but actually 27% per day means that it doubles every 3 days. And we couldn't see that. We couldn't approach what is exponential growth. The other thing I think is interesting is what I call the in-group bias, and we talk about exogroup, and you see that's what's happening in the US now. The in-group bias is like, okay, it's happening to the Italians, it's happening to the Chinese, but it can't happen to me. And you see the people as exogroups, you see the people as strangers, and that's what the Americans are doing now. They say for a long time, now they realize that it's not the case, but it's happening in Europe, it's not happening to us. And I think the last bias, it's what I call the groupthink bias, is that why would I go for confinement when I see millions of people doing jogging in the streets? And when you work in cognitive psychology a little bit, I mean, I think it's interesting to take one step back and analyze why did we react so slowly. And that's the first thing that resonates with me. The second thing that resonates with me, and I don't want to be too esoteric or too spiritual, but
be spiritual, Olivier.
Okay, I'll go that route. But I mean, what we're experiencing today socially is almost a near-death experience, because near-death experience usually is used for people, you know, that got very sick and almost died and everything. But what we're doing with social distancing and with confinement is almost a near-death experience. And it's
You mean
social
economic
distance.
globally?
Well, I'll give an example. I mean, there was an Harvard studies that started in 1938 during the Great Depression. Basically, what they do, they took like 268 sophomore students in Harvard, and they analyzed over like 70 years. I mean, the impact of the social relationship they had with people on their health and on their happiness.
Mm.
And you can see that the only correlation that they found between happiness is not about if you have money, it's not about where you live, it's not about any of this. It's about the quality of the social interactions you have with people, that you have with your family, that you have with your spouse, that you have with your friends, that you have with everything. And it has an impact on your happiness, it has an impact on your health. So basically what we're experiencing with social distancing, it is a near-death experience. It's a hard stop on a lot of things. It's a hard stop on globalization. It's a hard stop on companies that are not fully digitalized. It's testing the limit on the mutual aid on the European basis, on the global basis, and you see like awful and unusual cases for us. I mean, you're not allowed to attend when your baby is gonna be born. You're not allowed to bury your parents, and this is really a near-death experience. And when you're in near-death experience, basically what's going to happen after that, it's that you're going to be what you call a twice-born. And a twice-born, if you look at the impact on the company, I think you have to draw a lot of consequences. And the consequences for me, it's not only rethinking your model, it's to accept that you start from a blank page. And financially, when you start for a blank page, and this is what we're doing at La Parisienne, is it means that you go for what you call, in the financial terminology, you go for zero-based budgets, which means you refuse to do a roll forward of what has happened in the past. Is you start from a blank page, and you look.
Olivier, roll forward means that you take as a model your experience, like last year budget, this year budget. Yeah. Okay.
And all of the companies, I mean, are doing roll forward. I mean, basically, you take the budget from last year, and you try to project what's going to be, the roll forward of that previous model.
Get it.
And I think if we want to be twice born, I think we have to stop roll forward. I think we have to do a full analysis of the real value that we want to put in our investments. And we have to assess how much the run is going to cost.
So so twice born, I see it as a phoenix, like
yes.
you reverse. So you don't take history as an
given.
Oh, exactly. And you take every new project from scratch, and you decide with like a blank experience.
A totally blank experience and blank page, and you look at every things that you do in the company and how much money you need to do that task. And this you have to mix with what we said before when I answered the question, I mean, what is the biggest opportunity? And I think we need to do that matrix of analysis, vertical by vertical, and then you mix it with a zero-based budget. And this is how you're being a twice born as a company. You redefine attractivity, you redefine priorities, and you redefine how much money you need to do to make the run, and how much money you're going to invest in your project in a frugal way. And this is what we're doing now. I mean, we will finish this analysis within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And again, I want the company to be, not a phoenix, because we're not dying. So it's not in the sense that we're dying and we need to be reborn. We need to be twice born. It's not reborn. And that's different. And that's different. And because probably financing will not be the same. I mean, a lot of people that are listening today probably have startups. They need financing. They need the investment funds behind them and everything. And will the model be the same? I mean, nobody knows. Will the investment fund will still be willing to finance losses for years? Will they be able to spend billions to build an oligopolistic position, such as the strategy that they did with WeWork, Uber, or other companies? I doubt about it. So that's why we have to do this twice-born analysis. And I think the last point that I'd like to raise about this, I think it's also, and I'm a big fan of technology, and especially a big fan of blockchain protocols and what you call DLT and distribution ledger technology and everything. And I think what we're experiencing is also a failure of centralized governance entity. It was the same thing in 2008 and during the financial crisis. And this is particularly at that moment that all the initiatives went live and the blockchain technology was put live, even if it existed in the past. And I think we will see a lot of opportunities for use cases on the blockchain, because it means decentralized governance, it means democracy, it means absence of centralization. And when you see what's happening again within the financial system today, if we're really unlucky and at one point the financial markets closes, there's going to be a systemic liquidity crisis for the entire world. And this is also because the governance is too much centralized.
I was speaking, Olivier, with an expert in crisis, but someone who's been really through all the financial crisis since the 80s. And he was telling me that because for the first time in history, this crisis is really a problem for all the country globally. So the answer is global as well. So all the debt will be treated as forgotten, like the bank will provide the money, and the answer won't be like you let one country against another one fight for the survivance. We will all survive because we are all touched. That's what he was telling me, because the answer is global and uniformized.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure I share that. I share that approach. You can see the limits of that approach already. I mean, you can see that the backup financial plan of the US is very different from the European one. You can see that it took time for the Europe to agree globally on the recovery plan. Everybody knows that recovery plan of 750 billion is not enough. I am not sure that mutual aid and global approach will stand through the crisis. And I'm sure that countries, because again, other people are seen as exogroup when you're talking about cognitive bias, they will want to protect their economy, and I'm not sure what kind of decision they can take to protect their national economy. And when you're again, if you go back to the blockchain, the qualities of the decentralized governance and democratic governance, it's basically that everybody's holding everybody and nobody has the control. So what's going to happen on the currency exchange market? Nobody knows. What's going to happen on the debt market, the fixed income market? Nobody knows. If one country decides to close its financial centralized stock market, it will have an impact in liquidity for the rest of the world. Maybe it won't happen. I don't want to be too negative, but I think it will put and it will pinpoint the fact that some functions are too centralized in the hands of too few people and too few countries. So I think we will build use cases.
I called it good vibe radio.
Yes, sorry. So I will go back to the good vibes. No, the good vibes is that there are major opportunities on this kind of technology and this kind of decentralized governance. And all the startups and the entrepreneurs that are working on this, I think they should work harder. That's what we do. because any crisis raises opportunities, and this crisis will be part of the same trend.
Okay, so thank you everyone for asking your question. In the chat, you can ask all of your questions to Olivier. Thank you, Yves, and thank you, Thomas, for participating. So Yves was saying that actually because we didn't use the exact number of deaths in China, that's why we didn't took it seriously. But it is one of the possible reason.
I know Yves very well. He's a very good partner of La Parisienne. We work with him. So.
Thomas, okay. Fatoumata, is this how you deal with new opportunity during the crisis? How do you deal with urgent requests?
Well, on a daily basis every morning we have a meeting with my direct reports, and we actually trace everything that is coming from our partners, the urgent request, and we've committed for SLA to answer within the day. So for the moment, we've been successful at doing so with all of the partners. We have approximately 85 partners and 200 partnerships in the company. And what we said is that, we hope we're doing the best job as we can. And actually, we've decided that we're going to measure that job after the crisis, because we'll do a NPS, a Net Promoter Score, with all our partners so that they can judge us and give us their feeling about the way we've handled their urgent request and the way we've handled the way we can help them.
Pierre is asking, hi Olivier, what is your view on the health insurance future?
Very interesting. So we're not super specialized in the health industry. We have the license and the line of business, but we're just starting now. So going back to the previous questions, I mean, this is one opportunity that we see clearly. Well, you know that the French health system is very peculiar in comparison to the other countries, because a lot of things are covered by the states. The insurance came as a complement, I think, of the governmental system. The way that I see health insurance in the future is that they will be, the government can't cover everything. And it also, instead of being only protecting people for their daily use of, the health system, like doctors, medicines, and everything, I think we have to build up products. We're starting to build it, actually, that gives fixed amount of money in case of really serious problems. Those products already exist. I mean, for dread diseases, for example, and I want to stay in the good vibes, but health is not always a good vibes. But where we protect people for cancer, hepatitis, and the really dread disease, I think we have to extend those products to the pandemic problem and everything that is arising now, because governmental plus insure is good, but it is covering the daily use of medicines. And I think we have also not to cover what can be like a peak in your daily life, a peak of expenses linked to a dread event. And that's where I think we should go into building the health insurance products for the future.
If the solution to the crisis is decentralization, aren't you afraid of countries going into protectionism, which would be bad for everyone?
Of course, I'm afraid of that. I think everybody should be afraid of that. But at the same time, I mean, not pushing for protectionism, sorry, but we've seen the limits of globalization. So you can see that now countries that have protected their industrial verticals, like Germany, they have everything to fight against the pandemic. I mean, they have the industry to build a breathing system. They have industry to build a reactive for the test. They have industries for the mask. They have industries for everything. For example, our choice, which was to, of course, export and decentralize some of the functionalities of those verticals, is creating problems today. So probably we don't want to go towards protectionism, but I think probably the governments have to make the same analysis that the companies are making and say, what is the key aspects of our industries that we want to keep with an autonomy and a capacity to react to crisis. And I think that analysis, which is basically called a continuity plan in a company. And I think all the entrepreneurs that are listening have a continuity plan for their companies. Probably government should go towards that route as well, to build better and stronger continuity plan. And that means probably changing their industrial policies. Protectionism is a risk. But again, that's why I think I was talking about decentralization of some financial function. Decentralization means actually putting all the countries and the companies together in decentralized protocol. So it's not protecting the company, it's actually spreading the responsibility of the decisions across the globe. So that's a different thing.
Okay, there are so many questions. One comment from Yves: the good vibe is that the Fed and the European Central Bank are going to create money to face the situation, and this will be the base of the next financial bubble. Thank you.
It will be the base of the next financial crisis for governments and for the public sphere. I agree. You cannot create money like this and without consequences.
Crazy to it's open. It feels
it's
open.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you kill companies, you kill people's revenues, and you create civil war. So and it's a direct consequence. If people don't have money to live and eat anymore, which is a consequence of companies' bankruptcies, then you go towards civil war. So I think the governments are going in the right directions, but they will have to handle the consequences afterwards. I agree.
Yeah. Hi, Olivier. The crisis is probably going to increase the share of remote work and more and share of sensitive data to the cloud. And we will share more sensitive data in the cloud. Is that a trigger to the development and revolution of a cyber risk insurance?
Very, very good question. Well, first, if I'm talking for 2 minutes about us, we've been fully in the cloud for the last 5 years. We don't have one machine physically anywhere that is ours. And when we did this at the time, there were a lot of people telling us that we were following a risky route. But I think the major cloud company, to nominate the two main ones, which are Azure from Microsoft and AWS from Amazon, they're probably the people that have the biggest investment strength to build protective measures on cyber attacks. I mean, whatever the money you spend on your own infrastructure, it will always be less money than they will spend. So I think going to the clouds is not increasing cyber risks. I think it's diminishing cyber risk, which can be counterintuitive. That's the first thing. Yes, cyber risk insurance is a subject. Insurers have been writing that risk for a few years now. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I mean, because insurers, again, we're statisticians, so we like to have data from the past to predict the future. And on this, we have zero data from the past, so it's very hard to predict the future. So we're using artificial intelligence to price those risks. And I agree that there is a temptation from hackers in the context of the crisis to push and attack more, and we're seeing already, I mean, some activism on that side. But be a revolution of cyber risk insurance, no. But probably that it will help us have more data to price better, yes. And but going to the clouds, maybe if it's counterintuitive, I think it's diminishing cyber risks instead of increasing cyber risks.
Romaric is saying that we are starting to see insurance companies telling that they may be going bankrupt if they don't receive enough help from the state. Any comment on that?
Yeah, sure. You have two problems basically in insurance companies. And to make it super simple, I mean, we cash your premiums first and we pay claims later. So that means that we keep your money for quite an extensive period of time, and this money we invest it. So it all depends on how you've invested that money. So that basically cash flow that is coming from the difference between the time you pay the claims and the time you cash the premiums. A lot of insurance companies were exposed to stock markets. And when you see what has happened to stock markets, which is basically minus 30 to 40%. So, of course, the value of your assets has decreased drastically. And but those assets, you still need that money to pay the claims later. So, so of course, it's a problem. At La Parisienne, we don't have any exposure to the stock market, zero. The second markets in which insurance companies invest money are fixed income. So what is fixed income? They're bonds. They're basically debts that are raised both by governments and by companies on the market. And this is where we're coming back to the plan that you were talking about, Elise, I mean, which is the Fed plan and the BCE plan, and the government's backing those debts. Like I said, if the governments are not backing those debts, then the companies won't be able to pay their debt anymore. And then insurance companies, as a consequence, will be going bankrupt because the value of our assets will be worth almost zero. So I think if you were cautious in the way you're investing your premium, which we were, you don't have real risks for the moment, clearly not, unless, like I said, there's a financial market somewhere that decides to close, which means that you don't have liquidity anymore, and which I hope it's not going to happen. Let's keep the good vibes. For the moment, it's not the case. The fixed income market is holding. It's just that the people that have issued debt are downgraded by the rating agency. So we are at that level. And basically what the government has said is that they will back those debts that have been issued by the companies in general. So I think for the moment, with the backup plans of the government, I mean, we're safe, unless you've put too much money on the stock markets and you've been too risky on your investments.
Okay, last question from Marc Assenio. Would you have any books, method, tools to recommend related to how you run your company, like the few hierarchical levels, decentralization, empowerment of everyone regarding business decision, asynchronous, remote work?
Well, that's a lot of items.
What's the latest thing that you've been really paying attention to in terms of books or articles?
In terms of books, well, it all comes back to the way you build your leadership, I think, with your team. And when I say you, it's not only me, the CEO, but it's also all the managers that you have around you. And I think one should be extremely, I don't have any books to answer clearly to the questions. I mean, this leadership guru that was teaching me at INSEAD, he wrote 42 books. So you can just like Google, again, his name is Manfred. His name is Manfred Ketz de Vries, and he's written so many books that, but they're all very good. They're all extremely good. And they're all about empowerment. They're all about deep listening. They're all about enablement. Basically, what I've been taught in that program, and which I think CEOs and managers should try to apply in their company today, is to make sure that they have very strong, deep listening to people, to understand what is the story behind the story. There's always a story behind the story when someone's talking to you. And I think today, during this crisis, apart from all the tooling, but I think everybody knows the good tooling for remote work and everything. You can all find tooling. It's the way you use it, and it's the human interaction that you try to keep through those virtual toolings. And especially in this period and in this crisis, you never know what's going to be the level of anxiety of the people you're talking to, even within your team, even if you think you know them, even if you think you've worked with them for so many years. Again, when I was talking to a near-death experience because of social distancing, some people are going to need help because confinement is very, very difficult socially and psychologically. And I explained why. And I think one manager should be even more careful than usual to try to understand what is behind the official speech that the people you're working with is giving you. So dig deeper, go deeper, try to understand, find their anxiety, try to solve their anxieties, try to keep them positive, try to explain them that, again, the company is going to be twice born. They're going to be major opportunities. I think we're going to learn as a group, as a society, as a personal human being from this, and try to go across the journey, because we have the impression that it's long, this confinement, but it's nothing at the level of our lives and at the level of a society. It's a second. Even if we're confined for 2 or 3 months, even if we go out in June, I mean, what is it at the level? So you have to try to lower the pressure of your relatives, of your direct reports, of your people, to tell them and make them understand that they should focus on the daily work that they have to do, on the daily, they have to take care of themselves on a daily basis. And that, again, those 2 or 3 months, it's an instant of reason, like we say. It's a second in our life. It's nothing. And I think that's what we should work on.
Olivier, Frederick is asking, what's your favorite music and drink to enjoy l'apéro in the south?
Well, I'm a big fan of electro music. You know, I'm a big Ibiza fan. So honestly, I think I've been imposing to the people that are living with me in the house electro music at night. I'm not sure they're very happy with this, but that relaxes me. I tried not to impose it to them too much. But again, anything that is electro, because for me, it is very close to heartbeat. It is very close. It gets into your mental. So much more than other musics for me, probably maybe not for the others. So electro music helps me. And I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but I don't drink alcohol at all. So not one drop. So I'm not a fun guy about this. So cool. I'm out of that game.
Thank you very much, Olivier. It was intense. It was so interesting. It is really well ending this, concluding this conversation, saying thank you, Olivier, to remind people that rebounding and resilience are the key to the survival of all human ventures. Thank you for your insight, Olivier, is saying Christian. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for being present. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything. And
yeah, so it was a good vibe radio session with you. Tomorrow I'm gonna interview someone different, so you have to join. Every day we have new entrepreneurs. My friends, it's not the end.
It's the beginning.
It's just the beginning. At the family, we totally radically switched the way we provide content and meaningful content, live event. So next week, you're going to have a co-founder moment. So if you want to find your co-founder on a Saturday morning, you will be able to find someone who is as passionate, as dedicated as you are. It's going to be a giant chat roulette. We're going to have a summit around fundraising in challenging times with amazing people. VC talking, but also entrepreneurs who have been fundraising during the crisis. Fred Destin will be talking, and my co-founder Nicolas Collin will give his view on how education will totally be transformed after this crisis. So you're going to have a lot of events to join. And my friends, now you can all move to the left of your screen. There is a button called networking. You click on networking and you will be able to meet for 5 minutes people who have been watching this conference together. And I would love to see you there. So you all have to click on networking and let's play, let's meet, let's connect, let's exchange, let's brainstorm, let's feedback what has been done. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Thank you very much, Olivier.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.